one.
Hello, everyone. I am Rebecca Hess at REMAX Capitol Properties, and we are here live again today, wanting to talk to you.
Hi guys, I'm Cherisa Applehunt.
Now, we're glad you're here joining us. If you have any questions or comments as we're going through this, please go ahead and send us a message, and we'll try and touch base on that. But today we thought we would spend some time talking to you guys about what to consider when buying a home. We both work with buyers here in the area in Cheyenne, and we've seen a lot of houses, and we've kind of learned over the years to pinpoint some of the things that as a buyer you may want to consider when looking for a home. Some of the things that we would talk about first maybe are some of the amenities, the location you're looking for. If you have a specific location in mind, that's great, but what does that location offer you? And amenities, we talk about stores, shopping, how close are you to schools, what kind of access do you have to public transportation or hospitals or community centers, restaurants, things like that. What else can you think of that people might look at as far as amenities go?
I think there's a lot in the area. Fitness centers. I think I don't know if urgent cares or something. Fire stations.
Yeah.
I think we kind of go back into community centers.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I know the biggest thing is schools, school districts. Is it a block? Is it close? Can my kid, my children walk to school, or do they have to ride the bus?
Yeah.
Those are some big things to really consider.
And if you're moving from one house in town to another house in town, you probably have a good idea what schools you're looking for and where you want to be. But if you're coming from out of state, that's something to really consider and look at, especially if your schools would be a big one. Maybe we should talk about schools and the triads and how it's set up here in Cheyenne. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So in Cheyenne, we have 3 triads. You have the Central, the East, and the South School District. And what's really nice is you have it kind of broken down for those 3, but you have, I wrote some notes down, but there's 28 elementary schools here in Cheyenne. And you have 2 5th and 6th grade schools, but you also have the 3 junior highs. And those are hard because you have the grade levels where some elementary schools you're sitting at kindergarten through 4th.
Yeah.
And then you have some that are K through 6.
Yeah.
And so, doing that research and really just picking up, is this the East Triad or is this a South Triad?
Yeah.
Or is this a South Triad? And
and
moving, if you're coming from out of state, you have no clue
No
what
clue
that
on
looks
that,
like.
yeah.
But also if you're coming from one part of the town to another, you have to almost transition of schools as well.
Yeah, from one triad to the other. And one thing that's really nice about how our school district has set up their triads is from the time you get into kindergarten, you belong to that triad.
Yep.
So even as a kindergartner, so my kids were in the Central Triad, even as an elementary school kid, we belonged to Central. So we would support those Central High School games and those kids, and it was kind of part of what was coming up for our kids. And so from the very beginning, those high schools have gone into the junior highs and then into those elementary schools. And you are part of that triad from the very beginning. So that's kind of a big deal when you're moving, especially if you're having to switch from one area of town to another. Which triad are you going to?
Oh, absolutely. I coached. I was a head volleyball coach for 5 years, and growing that community is so huge. And so seeing that and being a part of that is so cool. And you want that for your kids.
Yeah.
And starting at that kindergarten level and seeing those kids on the basketball court or on the football field and really growing that is so big.
It's wonderful.
You want to have that also when you're moving here.
Yeah.
And to see it. And that's the biggest thing is, if you don't know what school, go visit.
Yeah.
Go
check them out. Yeah,
go
for
to
sure.
A game and see what's there for sure.
Yeah, well, and I love too, I think all the triads do this where they invite those elementary kids into the football games or to the basketball games, and those kids get to come onto the courts or the fields in their Central gear, right? In their red or blue or gold or yellow at this point. But those are the options that the school district triads give us, and these kids really feel a part of that. So it's something definitely to look into when you're looking at where to purchase a home.
Well, and I think it's awesome too, is because not just sports, but they have the clubs. They have so many other events, and so what's nice is the high school really goes out to all schools and really invites you into like a volleyball camp or a football camp, and so those are good ways to be able to educate yourself on the school districts and stuff, and don't be afraid to go try all of them.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge advocate that if go try every school. Go out there. I think it's great to be a part of it and support all schools. So.
Yeah. Well, and I also think too, it's fun because in our own office, we have agents who live all over town, right? So you can tell which triad they belong to by how they dress when they come into the office and if it's a game day or not. So it isn't just within the schools, it's within the community and you know who you belong to. Which
Absolutely.
Triad.
And I'm not from here, so coming into a big community like this and coaching it, I mean, I was like, whoa, there's rivals across town.
Right.
Well, so it's been cool to be a part of it, but I love the friendly and support that also comes with it.
And it is friendly, I will say. I know we get a little competitive here at REMAX, but it is friendly for the most part, right? But yeah, it's pretty awesome. So the triads is a great thing to consider the schools when you're moving into a different area. What are some other things we want to talk about?
Well, I want to also, if you don't know what triad you are in, there is a website, and we could put it in the comments. It's schoolsitelocator.com. So if there's anything, questions and stuff, you can message one of us, and we can even send that out. But that's a really good education system.
And it will tell you which triad, the house, the address, or whatever.
Yep, exactly. It gives you that location and gives you what school also. And what elementary out of the 20 elementary schools will give you what school you're at too.
Absolutely. Something else I was thinking about when you're considering where to buy a home is the growth or future growth you're going to see in that area. So I live out north of town, and we do have growth out there, but it's mostly rural residential. So we're on acreage out there. Everybody's on acreage. We don't have a lot of infrastructure growth out there, but you're going to find a lot of infrastructure growth out in the east side of town. So many incredible shops and places that have opened up with some of these new neighborhoods that have gone in out there. And then over by LCCC with Sweetgrass out there. So something to consider is not only what you have now, the amenities you have close by now, but what's going to be coming down the road. Probably something to consider. Any neighborhoods you particularly love in town or that you?
Yeah, I've been blessed. It's crazy. We've bought in 4 houses in Cheyenne. We've been everywhere.
Have you?
And I loved the Bluffs area.
Yeah.
That area is just beautiful. We're in Roll. We're out off of 4 Mile.
Okay.
We're over by Meadowlark Estates. We're off of my goodness, I just went blank, but we're right out there.
Out there, rural north of town.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so kind of where you have Rocking Star and kind of out that way. So, and we love it. Yeah. But I know personally, I've had a lot of interest with a lot of buyers within Sweetgrass. The Point is it's a popular place. Yeah. It has great parks, has those, really close grocery stores. Yeah. And then you just can't go wrong with something, the Western Hills.
Oh,
I think that, I personally just love the
I love it. I love Western Hills. And one thing to think about with Western Hills too is there's not going to be any more development in that area. Yeah. These are very well established neighborhoods. They've got lots of beautiful trees. You've got the base on one side of you and then the highway on the other side of you. And it's just a nice, beautiful, developed community that's been there forever. And I think people tend to buy homes there and stay because it's such a nice neighborhood. Some of the other ones that we have a lot of neighborhoods out west of town that have been developed. Rocking Star out there, and that's all on acreage, and we still have houses being built out there. I'm not sure, I can't remember how long ago the first houses were built out there, but I know when I started real estate, that was a new neighborhood, right? And it's not as new now, but we still have new stuff going on out there, which is a great option.
Well, and I know we got, even if you think about going towards like Pine, we have, I know Steve has the houses over at SkyTrain. That new development out there. So I think we're growing. I mean, you can totally tell. And so I think that's a big thing is considering is when you're coming into Cheyenne and you're looking at either a rural property or an house, you're going to consider what's that look like? Are we going to get a grocery store closer? Is there going to be additional buildings around us? Like,
absolutely.
What's that construction? I mean, those are just good conversations that you need to have with your agents.
Yeah.
Because it might not know right now, but in 6 months is a lot across the street going to be built on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And then we've got places like the Avenues downtown, which are just classic, right? The Avenue houses, which are absolutely beautiful, and we love those. How close are you to walking distance to shops and stores and different things that you can go do in the evenings? I'm trying to think downtown. They've got some. This is not my game, right? I don't go play billiards or anything like that. But I know there's places downtown you can go and do stuff like that. So how close are you to within walking distance of this? And then obviously, what do we have in our community that's going to affect where you live? So the neighborhood right next to Frontier Park.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have Frontier Days every year for 10 days, 10, 12 days. It's madness right there. So if you're buying a home in that area, are you familiar with that and aware of what's going to be going on up and down your streets for 10 days, right?
Or are you an investor and want that
Exactly.
up and down your streets? And so I think
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
it's so cool is you can have it on both sides.
Yeah, you really could. You really could. I think too, we look at shopping centers. Our Del Range is kind of our main strip down here in Cheyenne, and we've got all the big stores along Del Range and restaurants. So how close are you to some of these stores? Like how long is it going to take you to get to Walmart or to the different grocery centers and things like that?
Well, the
Fitness centers are a big
construction
deal.
on Del Range is
Right. Well, and then the changes, like I said, I started real estate 7 years ago and we've been here over 20 years now, and just the changes like the mall and things like that, things that have come and gone. So what are the changes? But how close are you to having access to these kind of things? So something to consider when buying a house. I also like to look at the neighborhood when I'm looking specifically at areas I want to live in. I like to drive around the neighborhood and kind of see what kind of care is being taken care of in the neighborhood, right? And I know different price ranges, you're going to get a little bit of differentiated with that anyway. But that's something to consider is go look around the neighborhoods and see the pride that you see in the homes
Oh,
and in the
absolutely.
yards and things like that.
And I love
So-
being able to, when before school and after school,
Yeah.
how many of your kids are walking to school?
Right, yeah.
Are you close to a school that can walk to
Yeah.
school? I just love kind of going after, in the summer, is anyone walking dogs?
Yeah.
Pushing a stroller? Like,
Yeah.
I just, I think of if thinking about them being a part of a community within a
absolutely.
neighborhood, are you wanting something that is your kids can play next door and
Yeah.
you have that trust with a park, or you wanting to be in the rural area where, you might not get that?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and one thing too, when we talk about amenities, we've got hospitals. We've got a big hospital here in town, right? And that is pretty centrally located, I think. But we also have urgent cares that we see
Yeah.
in most sides of town, which have come up the last few years, and that's been really great too to have access to urgent care, kind of no matter where you live in town, right? When you need it. And I know we've had a couple new fire departments built, and so being able to pinpoint where those are and how close they're going to be, it's obviously going to help your insurance probably when you go to purchase a house, because they want to see your location compared to those, but also just ease of mind, knowing when you need some help, right?
Well, and that's the biggest thing. I ended up having a stroke in 2022, and I never thought, at age 34, that you would need to have an ambulance.
Ambulance, yeah.
Or response
And were you
time.
guys living outside of town at
We
that
were
point?
actually. And
Okay.
so, like, just thinking about response time, and just having those questions of, like,
Yeah.
what would a response time?
Yeah.
Or, is an ambulance able to come
Yeah.
out? What is it, just the fire department? There's so many questions. We have so many
Yeah.
rural properties.
So many rural properties, yeah.
How long does it take to get to your house
Yeah.
if there is an emergency? Or are you looking to be closer and having that? Those are big conversations to have with your agent,
Yeah.
because you don't think about it until you have to.
Oh yeah, that's
And so,
scary.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely something to consider. Another thing I would think we talk about when we're considering to buy a house is maybe the age of the home.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
we've got the different neighborhoods, and in the avenues, you're going to find houses built. I own one downtown that was built in 1920. So what in a house that was built in 1920 could be some things you have to deal with as a homeowner,
Or what has
vers-
been fixed
right?
or not.
Yeah, and that versus something that was built in 2020.
Yep.
What are the differences there? So it's definitely something to consider. And as a buyer's agent, as we take our clients around, hopefully as buyer's agents, we're very well knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. We can help kind of
Point them
give
in the right
info-
direction. I agree.
Some things that maybe they need to take into consideration. I know there's some areas in town that have that old clay sewer piping, and so one of the things I say as a buyer's agent, if they're looking for houses in this area, we definitely need to get
A sewer camera.
a sewer camera
Yes.
so we can see what we're dealing with. That's just truly based off the age of the home.
Yep.
And no other information on that, just the age of the home. Let's
Or the
do that.
electrical, like where's the
Absolutely.
electrical? Has it been updated?
Yeah.
And where's that look like? So,
Yeah. Well, and then you think about going out east of town, we had that hailstorm that came
Oh.
out in 2018, right? And how many houses over there in that Saddle Ridge area got hit with hail? And I just sold a house last year that we were still doing repairs from some of that hailstorm that came in 2018. So that's something to consider. We definitely want to make sure we have roof certifications.
Oh, that's big.
Inspections on roofs out
And
there,
I think
right?
on both sides,
Yeah.
as much as we're even working with a buyer, we want to do that for our seller
Yeah.
as well. As we want to make sure that we're advocating, so if it needs to put in a claim, that we're getting that done before
Yeah.
and helping them through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to remind you guys that I'm Rebecca Hess, and this is Chris, and we're here from REMAX Capitol Properties Live, just talking about things to consider when buying a home. So if you have any ideas or questions you want to throw at us, please do so. The other thing I would think about too is possibly what kind of updates or repairs or maintenance your home's going to require. You know, and I do think that is also an age of the home kind of question, but maybe the type of home.
Or the wear and tear on the house. Like, I mean, it's just my mom and my dad at
Yeah.
their house, and I have 2 daughters. So
Yeah.
the difference on, their build and
Yeah.
having, the difference on mine. And so like the wear and tear, what needs to be updated.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
they don't have dogs on their hardwood floor. I have dogs. Like, am I going to have to refinish my
Right.
floors before theirs? Absolutely.
Right.
So just those
Dogs,
kind
yeah.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
well, and
kind
then, windows. Do I need to replace windows? If you've never lived in Cheyenne and are not familiar with the wind, you're probably going to want really good windows. And that may be something to consider when you're looking at a house. Am I going to need to replace windows on this, right?
And what's the
'Cause,
cost of that?
And the cost, absolutely. So definitely some things to consider when purchasing a home. And then I would say on the flip side of this, with sellers, we're trying to bring buyers into your home. We're trying to get the people to look at the houses. So what are some of these things we can tackle ahead of time? Location, you can't do anything about. That is where it is. But you can definitely look at some of these, like your roofs and your windows, and do some upgrades and things like that that would make the home very pleasing to someone once they've figured out the area they want to be in.
That's the location,
Yeah.
getting in and taking care of those items for sure.
Well, and I do feel, for me strongly, I feel very strongly that location. They do say that. Cheyenne is wonderful because I can't really think of a bad location in Cheyenne. There's nowhere that I would say that about, because Cheyenne's such a great city and wonderful places everywhere. But definitely I have some of my favorites. And so when I'm looking at houses, I may not find the perfect house, but I might find the perfect location.
I agree.
So if I can look past some of the imperfections in that house, some of the things that I can go in and change, that location may be worth it to me to go there.
Well, and I think too is my husband builds power lines, and so he travels all over. And so when we were thinking about, buying our 4th home and trying to figure out location, we knew exactly kind of what school district we were looking for, but we also were really thinking we need to be closer to I-25.
Yeah, so he has access to go.
Go to Denver, go to Colorado, and that was a big thing because, when you're leaving at 4:00 in the morning, and 30-minute drive is, a time breaker on the downtown Denver, right?
Yes.
So that was big for us.
Yeah, that is a big deal. And you've got the I-80 and I-25. I know when I was going to school in Laramie, driving up and down on I-80, I had to make sure the same thing. I planned my timing right and knew what I was getting into as far as those roads. So having easy access to I-25 and then I-80 was great.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, and it's nice. It's Cheyenne. So, I mean, we get a lot of people that move to Cheyenne. We have a beautiful city. We are so blessed to be able to be here. But we have a lot of commuters.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people traveling to Nebraska, to Laramie, go to school, all the way down to Denver. So, are they want, when you think about location, you have to also consider, are you wanting close to I-80? You want to be close to I-25? You want to be both?
Yeah.
Where, how close?
Yeah.
What's too close?
Yeah, absolutely. What's
an easy? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a big, as an agent, having that conversation. We're not big, right? We don't have big traffic jams. We're not there.
Usually you can get from one side clear to the other in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
I was like 15 minutes, exactly.
It doesn't take a long time to get anywhere, but it can make a difference on a commute. If you're trying to drive down into Colorado or go up north into Casper, it definitely could take some time. Sometimes you have to navigate to get to those freeways.
I agree.
So yeah, that's a great thing to consider. What else would we consider when purchasing a home?
I would almost think, I don't know. I mean, I would almost think about too is how many bedrooms are you thinking about? Your necessities, right?
Yeah.
Like come in, let's have the conversation of, do you need 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms? Or can you deal with the 2 bedrooms? Are you wanting an unfinished basement? I think those are good conversations to know up front. Are you looking for a house that you want to move in ready?
Yeah.
Or are you wanting
willing to put some work into it? Well, now as a buyer's agent, it's so good that you know that. And I always say with my buyers, if I can go out with them and look at a couple of houses, by about the 3rd house,
you'll know.
I have a pretty good idea what they're looking for. Because I can see as they're walking around the things they point out, either that they like or they don't like. So definitely get out there with your buyer's agent and look at houses. And then as, I always tell my people, go drive around and look and see which areas you're really looking at, because you can have a home that's listed at $350,000 on one side of town and then something exactly the same on the other side of town. And the only thing that really makes them different is where they're at.
Location.
So go make sure you're familiar with the locations and what's close by and what you like about each place versus what you don't like, so you can make better decisions on that. So that's something I think that's important to do. What are some of the neighborhoods we have here in town that we might want to pinpoint. I know we've hit Western Hills and Sweetgrass, The Point, Rocking Star. Thomas Heights is another one.
Oh,
that
yeah, Thomas
really
Heights.
nice. Our first house being here was in the Buffalo Ridge area. And we
Oh.
loved it over there. We just outgrew the house so fast. So that was something to consider is houses in that area wouldn't fit us anymore. So we moved up to something a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
but a
we
very
were
nice
right off the
area.
bluffs too. We were in like the Crest Ridge
Yeah,
area, and I
okay.
liked that. But we, our first house was actually out in Archer.
Oh, okay.
We had 40 acres.
Oh,
out-
east of town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was just we. My husband was gone, and we kind of moved somewhere else
Yeah.
a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of we have so many different locations, and I think that's where it's hard is when you think about close rural. We have the east side. You have clear out north.
Yeah,
Like,
even and down south, some wonderful
Yes.
east properties down there too as you're heading south. Yeah, it's a wonderful place, Cheyenne, and so many options for housing, which I love. So I think for me today, my biggest takeaway, I obviously believe location.
I agree.
Make sure you know where you want to be, because even though it's Cheyenne and it's not huge, it's very different from place to place to place. And so know where you want to be, what kind of area you're looking for, and the amenities you might need, and access to things that you're going to want. And then I would say, once you figure that out, then you kind of pinpoint the houses and find the right house for you.
I agree.
in
And
that
I also
area.
think don't be afraid to go out and look at more.
Yeah.
The moment you feel like you're getting discouraged because you can't find
Yeah.
we're so blessed to be able to
Yeah.
our market is always changing right
Always.
now. And so if it's not on the market right now, it will be.
It will be.
And I know get an
Absolutely.
agent that's gonna, go out there and maybe
Yeah.
find that house
Yeah.
for you for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, let us know. We'd be happy to reach out and get in touch with you, but we're grateful that you were visiting with us today.